Welcome once again, lacrosse friends, to Lacrosse Link. Very exciting this week with the NLL draft going virtual, not able to gather in Buffalo. We are also having a virtual mock draft. Unfortunately, Tanner Fetch not able to be with us this week, my usual co-host, but we are lucky to have Brad MacArthur, the head coach and general manager of the Brooklyn Lacrosse Club in MSL, and one of the most knowledgeable people in the game of lacrosse about prospects, joining to do a virtual mock draft. We will take turns. I explain it in the main video, the main section. So hope you enjoy that. And one note, we are picking what we would do if we were selecting for these teams, not what we think the teams are actually going to select on Saturday night on the virtual draft. So thanks for joining us. Please do subscribe, like, share, let everyone know to go and check it out and get back to us. You can hit me up at StampLax on Twitter and at StampLax1234 on Instagram. Not a huge Insta guy, but you can hit me there too as well. But Twitter is probably the way to go. Thanks for being with us, lacrosse friends. Enjoy the draft with Brad MacArthur and myself here on Lacrosse Link.
Beautiful play, Aaron Gray Eyes. He is having himself a tournament.
So he's definitely physical, athletic, and somebody to be watching for.
In the middle, it just bounces off, but it's picked up and scored.
We are ready to roll with our mock draft. As mentioned, Brad MacArthur is with me, and we are each selecting. The quick rules are we have 90 seconds per selection to do the first round, and we're going to alternate picks, except we want to have people picking all for the same team. So Brad will be picking for Panther City first. He'll also do Panther City's pick later in the round at 11. Brad will have the Buffalo picks, all three of them, and you'll also have the two Saskatchewan picks. I will be picking multiple picks for Georgia and Calgary, so we don't go quite back and forth. There'll be the occasional repeated pick, but I will kind of manage that as we go. And Carrie Jane McMaster is our lovely and talented assistant on the side. We'll be timing the 1.5 minutes. She will say 30 seconds when there are 30 seconds remaining to make a pick, and then she will say time, and then we'll restart the clock and make sure we are staying within our allotted time. Much faster than the actual draft will be, and we don't have any timeouts. So the pressure's on. You ready?
Yeah. Let's
Okay.
go.
Because you are starting first. Carrie, are you ready to start with Panther City Lacrosse Club, chosen by Brad MacArthur?
I'll give the podium, the initial first overall pick type speech first. So with the first overall selection in the Lacrosse Link NLL Virtual Entry Draft, it will come as no surprise that I picked Jonathan Donville first overall.
I am not surprised by that. You actually picked him in real life in the MSL draft first overall as well, and that seems to be working out pretty well for you. That is a player, of course, who is not available this year, but someone who will be obviously a franchise player down the road. I am now picking for the Georgia Swarm, and I would love to get a righty forward to play right away with Randy Stotts out with injury. That's definitely a position that we could use some depth, but I cannot pass up Ryan Lanchbury, who to me is basically on virtually even footing with Jonathan Donville. So I will take the Georgia Swarm, are pleased to select with the second overall pick in the Lacrosse Link virtual NLL draft, Ryan Lanchbury. That puts Brad MacArthur as Buffalo number 3 on the clock.
Yeah, and that's a solid selection. I mean, when we talked about it earlier, I've had both these players, and you can flip them back and forth between 1 and 2 and 2 and 1, and I know both of them quite well. And if this is the way it plays out, I'd be really happy to see that.
Yeah.
So with the third selection, the Buffalo Bandits are going to continue to build their left side talent. And we are going to take out of Halton Hills, Orangeville, Brampton, and Rutgers, Adam Charlambides.
That seems like an excellent pick. Charlambides is the first player who is available now immediately to come and play. And Carrie, you're going to restart that clock, please. As soon as we start a new pick, we're going to restart. So if we don't use the full minute and a half, it just goes to the next one. So yeah, I like the Charlambides pick. A lot of talent there. The one question, of course, he is going to be 25 years old this year. For the Vancouver Warriors, now on the clock with me. This is where it gets tricky. I have a number of players I would consider. I am thinking, obviously, Vancouver, having finished down in the standings, would love to get somebody right away, but I don't think you can pass up some of the talent of some of the players going back. And I like the idea of pairing last year's first pick for them, the second overall, Reed Bowering, with Jake Boudreau as another dynamic lefty transition player. So Vancouver will select Jake Boudreau from Brampton and where's he going to school? I can't even remember. Robert Morris. There you go. The Robert Morris Colonials. So the fourth pick, Jake Boudreau, and that brings us to San Diego. And Brad, you'll be picking for the Seals at number 5.
All right. Selecting Boudreau there just throws my thought process to a little bit.
That is always the goal in a draft, is to throw other people's thought process off.
Just change the dynamic of it. Not off, but no, it just depends on which way I'd like to veer. The one thing I think, well, not one thing, San Diego's got many things going for them right now, but their right side is completely stacked, and I don't think that's an area where they are in need of concern. Their back end is fairly youthful. Expansion's coming up. They're going to be losing someone. I think it's probably a good idea for them to be able to select someone that may not be reporting this year. And with that, out of Nanaimo and Montevallo, I'm going to select Thomas Bison.
Bison.
That would be the 5th overall pick.
Okay. I like the Bison pick. I think he's a dynamic young player. Again, haven't seen him for a bit, but he's so strong. He's so talented. Maybe a little overlooked in some places, but I think that's a nice pick. And I have a bit of a dilemma here at 6, selecting for the Calgary Roughnecks. Okay. I am going to follow a theme. I will go with my picks continuing to be transition players who are going to make an impact down the road. I think some depth on the left side in a year will be very useful. Out the back door, I'm going to go with Mike McCannell from the Oakville Rock, and previously to that, the Orangeville Northmen, and currently Stony Brook University. And that puts Saskatchewan on the clock back to back with picks 7 and 8, and Brad MacArthur picking.
Okay. Like, Saskatchewan's an interesting team. I know a lot of players on that team, pretty knowledgeable about their coaching staff. They've made some moves to kind of, I wouldn't say re-identify themselves, but to reload and make another run at this. They're always going to be fairly dangerous. You know?
Yes.
But there's a kid on the board here that I don't think that Saskatchewan can pass up. And I think with the veteran leadership of this team and the right mentorship, a lot of questions can be answered, because I don't think for this particular player, skill is not a question. Size is not a question. Speed, physicality. So with the 7th pick, the Saskatchewan Rush will be taking Dehoga Nanticoke from Six Nations.
Yeah, that's I like the way you explain that. I think there are red flags with Nanticoke, obviously, but I think the as you said, the mentorship is going to be important, and the talent is clearly there. And you're back on the clock.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to use some of this clock. Flags are different for everybody, and
Yes.
I mean, the bottom line is, we're not talking to the kid. We don't know what has happened or transpired or anything like that. A lot of stuff's become public, but I know the Rush leadership, and I know that group. And if there's anybody that can help someone along and see a right path or do anything, it's probably this group. And I think Dehoga would thrive in that situation. So.
And to me, to take 5 seconds of it, I think there are the red flags because of the Albany situation, the dismissal, but he does not seem like a bad kid to me. He seems like a good kid. And I think, like you said, it's just a matter of some mentorship and guidance, which frankly, every kid coming into the league could use. So I will return your time to you with about 37 seconds left.
That's fine. That's fine. So we're going to switch gears. We're going to build out of the back end here and grab some size out of British Columbia, and coming out of RIT, and I believe it's now Burnaby of the WLA, will be Patrick Shumay. Right,
the new Westminster junior, who we haven't seen for a few years. He was coming off a knee injury, a high school quarterback. He's got quite a skill set, and I think that's a great addition to them. We are going to go back now. I've got back-to-back picks. Number 9 is Georgia. And 2nd overall, we took Ryan Lanchbury, who is a great righty forward, but is not available this year. And I think availability right now for Georgia, as their roster is thinned out a little bit with some moves, a lot of picks to fill them in, but I'm going to grab for them a righty forward who will help everyone around him be better. Kyle Waters of Brooklyn Lacrosse Club, where you are, of course, the head coach GM. Are you still head coach?
Yep.
Yes, head coach GM and occasional camera person. So
in the NSL Classic, a little bit of everything.
Yes.
But we kind of used it as as a bit of a testing ground too, to have our OSL coaches on the bench with Ryan Preston, Clancy, and Kraus kind of running things so they can get to know the younger guys, and Kyle's a key part of that. So I'm happy to see him, because he was on my number 11 pick if you didn't select him.
There you go. So Philadelphia at 10. This is where it gets tough, because you have taken the guy that I was going to grab. I think Philadelphia has a pretty loaded front end. I think always depth is good, but just want to make sure I'm not missing anyone here. I haven't had any. No, I think I'm okay. We will take a gritty two-way player, solid, real leader, and somebody that I know a lot of people are really keen on, and that is from the Whitby Warriors and RIT, another champion down at RIT this year, Ryan Barnable.
Protected player from Brooklyn who we couldn't get across the border during the week.
There you go. So that puts you on the clock for Panther City at number 11.
Now they've made some signings, and again, looking at expansion for what they could possibly use, and probably going to veer away from my own top 10 list or 11 list here too, just because of the way things have played out. But I think we're going to take a lefty forward. So with the 11th pick from Brampton Excelsiors and Mercyhurst, we're going to take Nathan Grennan.
Okay. You have made my fellow draft analyst for the NLL, Teddy Jenner, very happy that you're taking the Mercyhurst alum, Grennan, who was outstanding in the OGLL finals in the OGLL season this year. And
I think what did it for me with him, there's a couple lefties that I like there. And I have a couple of young guys on my team that I'm debating on what I would do. But I think the thing that stands apart for me with him was that his motor in the OJLL showcase that they had was pretty consistent with the games that I watched him at Mercyhurst. And he's gone, but since he's come from Ottawa and played junior A, his game has gone on a very high upward trajectory. And I think, the potential for him being in school another year or not is still up in the air. And I think that's pretty reasonable for Panther City. If he comes, great. If he doesn't, draft list. Yeah,
100%. I am now on the clock as we start a fresh minute and a half for Halifax Thunderbirds at number 12. And I'm going to take someone that I thought you were just about to pick. And I'm looking at Halifax roster and saying they've got a very strong, they've got a lot of depth all over the roster. They don't really need anyone specifically right away anywhere, but they do have two lefty forwards in their 30s, which means that down the road, it's going to be good to have a succession plan in place to be preparing someone for when those guys decide they're not going to keep going, and maybe work them in with them. And I will take from Brooklyn Lacrosse Club and Toronto Beaches, Corson Keeley, and be very excited to grab him. Also from Robert Morris as well. So another Colonial in Keeley to Halifax.
Yeah, and again, solid pick. Can't go wrong. I just there's not much separating a lot of these players. It's just little things, and I think with the Panther City staff, I think Grennan's style fits in a little bit more with the way TK played.
Yeah.
Whereas, Corson's kind of slick and Gumby-ish, like that Hall of Famer behind the bench in Buffalo happened to be, because he's pretty slippery too.
Yeah. So we're on to Buffalo, pick 13, and you've got 13 and 14 for Buffalo back to back. And this will actually round out your draft, because then I'm going to finish up with Calgary and Albany. So pick 13 for the Buffalo Bandits.
A lot of teams for this player. Windsor Clippers, the Burlington Chiefs, Stony Brook University, and the Lindenwood Lions. We're going to take left-handed D-transition player Patrick Kazchuk.
I love that pick. I think Kazchuk is a guy who might be overlooked a little bit. I'm not sure where he'll go, but that seems like a good range to me. He's I love how he's come up, like you mentioned, from the Clippers, playing junior B, coming to junior A, and just evolving his game as he's gone year to year. And I like what he's done. He's looked very solid in the limited action he had in the MSL Classic this summer. And Buffalo will go again here, number 14, Buffalo Bandits on the clock with Brad MacArthur.
Okay, this one I'm probably going to take a little bit of time with.
You got a minute and a half. You just started. So.
Well, I think Buffalo's in one of those positions. Again, addressing, there's not a lot of needs on that team here and there, and they're going to be affected by expansion like everyone else. But it's a matter of a position that they're traditionally, not too strong in is where I'm kind of looking at.
I feel like I may be catching your vibe, and I have someone in mind that I would probably be looking at. A couple of people.
Well, call me a homer pick.
Yeah.
But out of the Ohio State University, Brooklyn, and the Burlington Chiefs, we're going to take Justin Inacio.
Yeah, and I was very much looking at that for Buffalo as well, at picking a face-off player who can take some of the burden off of Ian McKay and Nick Weiss. So I think, you want to have them get to just play defense, because they are real core guys on that defensive unit. So I like the pick. I was looking at Inacio or Jordan Aki, also a solid D and face-off guy. So I like the Inacio pick, and he was a guy that I hadn't really seen much. I don't think anybody had seen for a while and then you picked him. I remember when you took him in the MSL draft, I asked you after, like, what's with Inacio? Like, why are you picking him there? And you said, you'll see. I think it'll translate. And he's only played a couple of games with you this summer, but he's looked very good.
Yeah. You've had to ask me that a few times over the years, though.
That's true. Occasionally. I had to ask you about Colton Watkinson when you took him with the very last pick in the MSL draft out of Junior B, the Oakville Buzz, right? And that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, Colton's done a great job, and he's you're gonna be talking about his team up here in a few selections, but he's made himself a bona fide pro player in both indoor and outdoor. He played a couple seasons in the MLL as well.
So I'm on the clock with the Calgary Roughnecks at pick 15, and I'm going to skip a couple of people on my draft board to get them a very specific position. It's going to be a Western or Central to Western Canadian player who will help them immediately out the back door, add some depth on the left side. They have obviously some terrific talent on the left side. I think a little depth wouldn't hurt. And I think this is a kid that may have gone under the radar a bit, but has been exactly what the Saskatchewan SWAT were looking for throughout his career with that junior A team. Keegan White joining the Calgary Roughnecks. If you feel like sharing some thoughts while I go through my list for see who I'm going to take for Albany, feel free.
Well, it was just without lacrosse happening as much as it had the last couple of years. It's interesting. Just when we were talking about this, I usually have a lot more insight into the Western players because I watch their games. I see who they are, and a lot of the players was only able to watch it if they were at university. If they were able to do things, because there's some, there's always players, there's always guys that you kind of question, and I want to see more of. Caleb Kuber being another one of them. Really would have liked to have seen more box, but I had to go all the way back to 2019 World Indoors to find that. So, and then he played at Mercier, so I was able to see that as well. But it's just interesting to see how things kind of translate or don't, and where things lie at the end of the day.
Yeah, Cooper's an interesting one because is he a forward? Is he a transition guy? Could be either. I maybe transition. I think that might be where he winds up. But he can play forward. He was very good for England in the playoffs when he moved up.
Yeah, and I don't think he cares. I mean, most young guys getting in the league, they'll do whatever they can. And Dane Smith was a perfect example coming into the league. He wasn't a forward. He was a trainee coming out the back, and he kind of bided his time and made himself so important up there that they had to move him up. But it didn't happen overnight. It didn't even happen in the first season.
No, it was his third season. He actually wound up going full-time before. Mitch Jones, Jeff Shatler, so many examples of guys starting at the back door. Speaking of which, that might be a good segue here to Albany's pick from the Oakville Rock, where he actually started the season playing up front, moved back to a transition role, and has been doing a pretty nice job for both from Penn State and the Rock. And prior to that, the Toronto Beaches for a while. And junior, Jack Kelly, righty transition player, I think. And he could go up to forward at some point, and he doesn't come out for another year, which actually suits Albany very well. They have a lot of depth and not really pressing needs at this point, coming off the best record in the league in the last season that was played, of course, in 2020. So yeah, and we're going to have a nice little graphic up on the side so everyone can see the picks as they've gone. But how do you feel about your picks? You anything throw you for a loop, or?
Not really. I just, like I said, it's just interesting when there's a lack of lacrosse, and I really, when looking at the prospects, it was one thing that did kind of open my eyes was actually the limited amount from Central Canada this year, because usually I think there's a little bit more coming out of the Manitoba, not so much, but Saskatchewan, and then predominantly Alberta. And there just wasn't. I'm not saying it's a down year or anything. It's one of those years where I think they have a group of kids that are younger. That's kind of what stuck out to me, because I was thinking to myself, did I not see enough film? Do I not know these guys well enough? And I looked at them and I'm like, oh no, a lot of these guys are still seniors, like legit NCAA seniors that still have another year, not a COVID year after this. So they can't be in it. So it's kind of pretty exciting. But in terms of the teams I was selecting for, I was kind of building my little flow chart. And I mean, for Panther City, if I can come away with Jonathan Donville and Nate Grennan after a first round, and they're showing up next year, and I can protect them, I think that's great. Saskatchewan, Dehoga and Patrick Shumay, I think is, 6 and 7 rate together. I mean, you like those middle picks, right?
Yeah.
That kind of a really good average.
Yeah.
But Buffalo is the one, pretty happy with. I think the 3 picks there are good for the future, good for, immediately. And what's kind of showing up next year with some youth and enthusiasm. And these guys will all, Charlene Beatty's obviously has been off, but that will give Kazchuk and Anasio another year of senior before they actually hit the NLL floor, which will do nothing but help them.
It's interesting you talk about the middle of the country, and I think White is really solid. I think there's some guys coming along behind him, but the Alberta thing that you point out is really clear. That team that won midget nationals is now coming up. You've got guys like Keen Moon. You've got Ethan Forgrave is out this year, and I think he'll be a second rounder. And I think somebody's going to be pretty excited to get that lefty forward. And but there's a lot of talent coming out of Alberta, but it's probably, I think it's 2 or 3 years probably down the road when there's going to be an explosion. There's already been an increase with guys like Harry Matsuoka and players like that, Dylan Kinnear.
Yeah, and I think that's what set my expectation, is the amount of players that have been coming out. And then all of a sudden I was looking and I'm like, wow, there's actually a pretty limited number of guys that not on draft or prospect list, just the number that were actually eligible.
Yes.
Which was significantly lower than in the past.
Yeah, it will explode. We're going to wrap it up there with our first round mock here on Lacrosse Link virtual draft night. Thanks very much, Brad MacArthur, for stepping in. I will just say, probably should have said it before, that I think you're one of the most astute and certainly prepared analysts, evaluators of talent in the game. So I wanted to have you on, and it's great to go back and forth. And you only took a couple of the guys I was hoping to get at a specific spot, so you didn't mess me up too badly.
Well, when you asked me, I had to kind of develop a plan in my head pretty quick of how I wanted to build these couple of teams, right? So well, I appreciate the kind words. It's always fun to help, and these things are a lot of fun. It probably won't be the last one I do with some friends before the draft actually happens. So
me too. I've got another one in the works for IL Indoor that you can go and check out, everyone, and we'll have lots more coverage coming. That'll wrap things up for this episode of Lacrosse Link. Thank you, Lacrosse friends, for being with us here on Lacrosse Link. Check out all the info on the site, lacrosselink.com. Remember to subscribe, to share, to like. Really appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Great to have Brad MacArthur along with Tanner Fetch, unable to make it this week. And we'll be back next week after the draft with lots more on Lacrosse Link.